Hey everybody, this is Nick, and I'm here with David, also known as Angel. We're going to go over his red launch list that he top cut the main event one with.
Hey,
First,
bro.
how's it going? First thing we're going to do is kind of go over an overview of the deck, and I'll kind of be asking him some questions, and then we'll just let him talk a little bit about some of the decisions he made and why and things like that. So for those of you unfamiliar, Launch is new. She just released with the new NZ set. This is a Red Explosion Mastery and Roshi Sensei, pretty standard for red energy decks. His energy package is the standard red cards. He also has Left Palm Charge, Seeking Blast, Crep Crash, and then a couple of cards with weapons, which is Launch's gimmick in the title. Cannon, Blast, Shot, Missile, some various things like that. As far as he has an anti-physical package, Solar Flare, Jolting / Energy Pressure, generic blocks, 18 Stare Down, Dismal is his chosen battleground location, and then you can see all the staple one-ofs throughout the entire list, as well as his Sensei list here at the bottom. So first thing I want to ask is, how did you feel about the deck overall for the event?
Well, I would say it's a lot of fun, and it catches a lot of people off guard because, as you said, Launch is a pretty new personality, and she plays very different than most of the other personalities in the game. And so that kind of just means your deck building is so different than the rest of the decks in the game. So it definitely surprised a lot of people. It does have, I think it's pretty easily exploitable weaknesses, which we might get into, but I really enjoyed kind of playing the main event with this new personality.
So speaking of weaknesses, what would you say are like your best matchups and your worst matchups?
So the best matchups are honestly probably purely physical, like decks that are running just pure physical attacks. As you went over, most of my blocks are physical, and the fact that Launch just powers up so much, especially at the end of combat, it's really easy to get out of people who are trying to stage lock you. It gets around Saiyan beef.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very good against physical. And against energy, it's fine. It's you just kind of just have a shootout, and whoever kills your opponent faster wins. And this deck's pretty good at doing that. So kind of just general, like one or the other is fine, with physical being a little bit better. I think as far as worst matchups go, Launch's card economy is pretty bad, which is why I'm running a lot of the cards I am. So black decks that rip cards from your hand, and any deck that's kind of running hybrid, both physical and energy, is very difficult to deal with because you can't focus one or the other. So I would say that's kind of like generally the hardest things for her to deal with.
That all makes perfect sense. So I want to ask you about some specific card choices here. A lot of this looks like it was weapon themed and built with that in mind. I know Red Leverage Blast is a card you don't see a whole lot. So if you any comments you have on that, how did that perform?
So I would say if I was to build this deck again, the first card that's probably on the chopping block would be Leverage Blast. I wanted to try it out to see you could potentially the idea behind putting it in the deck was because you can put 3 energy combat cards on the top of your deck, and it's any energy combat. You can stack a deck for like a level 4 turn where you're hitting really hard, or if you're energy versus energy, you could grab some energy combat blocks. But the downside to it is it's most of the time just going to stack 3 energy attacks. And so unless you already happen to have a physical block going into a hand where you have 4, you might get blown out of the water by your opponent who just hits you really hard with physicals. So it doesn't really... I just kind of wanted to try it, and it probably wouldn't make the cut again, but it's kind of a fun like pseudo Earthball 7 where you get 3 cards.
Okay. So most of the rest of this deck is, the main deck at least, is pretty stock, pretty standard. I would say it's the cards you would expect to see. Two more cards that I thought were really interesting were Battle Pausing and Tech Support. So any you want to comment on those, or specifically why you chose those 2 cards?
Sure. So, I mean, battle pausing is just always really good in an energy deck. And again, as I said before, launch has terrible card draw and card economy. So, the more cards I can get back, the better. Especially, if I just played a couple energy attacks and then battle pausing, get them right back. You could potentially do a bit of a combo, especially on like her level 4. Tech support, I'm just running one as kind of a pun intended tech in certain matchups. It grabs Red Energy Hold, which is that physical block, which again just gives you more physical protection. It also grabbed the Bojack's left palm charge, which is just more damage, which she definitely likes. And then if I do Sensei in the mind control device against certain energy decks, since this was tough enough, there were a lot of Goku Senseis running around. So I wanted to make sure that my anger hate was something that would actually work against them. So mind control device is always a potential. It didn't really come up very much in my run, but there were decks that it definitely would have helped against in this event.
Okay. Let's move over to the Sensei deck. First question I generally have with the red energy decks is, do you just bring in red sniping shot every single game?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
My senseis in this event were a little rough at times, but I just feel like it provides so much in the way of damage. It can give you some anger for your mastery. Because of the mastery costing only 1 for all energy attacks, it's basically a net 0 as long as you have a stage to pay it initially. Mm-hmm. And because it's a shot card, you can always just discard it or kind of mill it with the level 3 power and then hit really hard. So it's just the damage that it does is just too good to pass up, in my opinion.
Okay. The one other Sensei deck card I thought stood out was the 1 Black Scout Maneuver. So what was your goal with this? When are you bringing it in, and what cards are you kind of looking to target with it?
So honestly, Black Scout Maneuver was kind of a last minute ad. I was kind of at 8 cards, and I couldn't really think of a good 9th one to throw in. So I was mostly putting it in a matchup where they had a very problem card for energy decks. So something like, I don't know, Black Energy Web in a black deck, or a single, like a Red Energy Redirect, or if somehow they were playing Bojack, the Bojack energy block, which I can't remember the name, but things like that, which just completely debilitate the deck, because the deck is very one note. It just does energy attacks, and if they have an answer to that, there's not really anything you can do about it.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's kind of the overall core of the deck. Is there any? So you'd made the comment that Red Leverage Blast is probably the first card you cut. Is there anything that overperformed? You thought played better than you expected it to?
I would say Red Energy Redirect was really good in a couple of my matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Dismal was single-handedly helped me in certain games, and then also just kind of didn't do a whole lot in other games. But I think it's, there's 2 different ways you can build launch. Battleground-wise, you can either do Dismal or you can do City. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. I wanted to run Dismal to kind of shore up my weakness against decks that would draw 1 million cards every turn, and it worked pretty well. But honestly, I felt like, for the most part, the cards performed very well. I mean, Krillin Seeking Blast was always clutch at the end. If you were on level 4, you could always just get it right back. And, the other stuff that did really well, like Earth Dragon Ball 7, is just to be expected because that card is crazy.
Of course. Yeah, that is for sure. That card is definitely a little too strong there. All right, another question I got for you is Red Voltage Missile. So you only have it as a 2 of. Is there a specific reason we didn't go with all 3, or?
I have a love-hate relationship with Voltage Missile, and I would say it's more hate than love, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I ran it because it's a missile card. Mm-hmm. I know people will run 3 ofs often because they like the idea of getting multiple attacks with their hand. But the problem is, as I've said a number of different times, is you're not starting your combat with a whole lot of cards in your hand. Mm-hmm. And if you're worried about any kind of defense or you're getting cards ripped, Voltage Missile either may be the only energy attack you have in your hand, or you might get an additional use of 1 other energy attack. And I can say in this tournament, I never used Voltage Missile once. Maybe it's just because I didn't draw it because I'm running 2 of, but it never was particularly useful in like a big turn, because if you did happen to have voltage missile and like 2 other energy attacks, you were probably just going to get beaten down. So I feel like it's a little bit more of a win more card, and a lot of my matches were kind of fighting for my life situations. Mm-hmm. So it just, I don't hate it, but I don't love it either.
Very fair. Well, 4-1 in the Swiss with the loss in Top Cut was pretty impressive. Obviously, the deck performed fairly well. You had a lot of close games, a lot of very interesting games, which you guys can check out on the channel. Most of them will be posted. Anything else you want to add as a sign off about the deck or the deck building process or launch specifically?
I think that launch is really fun. She really makes you rethink how you're building the deck because you can't run drills with her, and so you have to kind of decide: am I going to go with just a pure like city, I can't play drills, no one can play drills type build, or what I did, which is kind of sprinkle in some nons that are additional blocks that just add kind of a second hand on the field. Mm-hmm. I don't think any one of them is necessarily particularly more important than the other, but if you want to play a deck that's like a little bit of an unusual energy deck, you don't have to even play her in red. I think red is a great balance of offense and utility, but she works in blue with like a PUR build, and she works in orange and like I just want to do a lot of damage to them. But the matches are usually very quick with her because you're trying to kill them really quickly, and it's just a fun kind of change of pace.
All right. Well, guys, definitely try to check out Launch. It's she is a new personality, but she does a lot of interesting things. He just described the energy beats and the level hopping. It's very fun. It's a different way to play than most other MPs, so it's definitely something you should check out. That's going to be all for this video. If you guys want to check out the winner video, that'll be up shortly too. And thanks for watching, and have a good day.
See you guys.